Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Continuing on this vein of legacy. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, and I guess I'm repeating myself on some of the podcasts a little bit. About the American gun, the American rifle. If you think about like the Eastern European countries like Russia, or you think about China, you probably think about the Kalashnikov, or you think about the SKS or the PPSH. Maybe you think about the Makarov. What do you think about when you think about America, the United States of America? I've seen a lot of flags because of Memorial Day, and I live in a very small city, rural city, and we're still very much patriots here. And it's not unusual to see the American flag displayed correctly in my neck of the woods. And I've seen a couple of them used as, some of these shades that keep the sun away from your car, that display the flag in all of its glory across the windshield. And as I was walking to my truck tonight, getting off of work, I was thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? What screams America? When you think about the 2A, the 2A itself is American because nowhere else in the world do you have the right to bear arms. You usually have to go through a licensing scheme to, use your 2A rights as you would in the United States. The United States, once you're born, you're a naturalized citizen, or you're a citizen in general, you have the right to bear arms and defend yourself against, bad dudes and against tyranny. And I started thinking more and more about, what would the classic American gun be? And I went through a whole list of guns in my head. I thought about the Colt Single Action Army. This revolver changed the world, and it screams nothing but America. It's said that the good Lord made man and women. Sam Colt made him equal. Well, you keep thinking about it, and you're like, well, that's a big deal. What about the Winchester lever action or the Henry lever action? There was none of these around the world. This is something that's kind of unique to the United States, and it goes back to, our frontier days where we needed, you were your own logistical chain, so your pistol and your rifle kind of carried the same ammo. That makes a lot of sense logistically, if you only have what you can carry on you in a saddlebag and you're moving long distances. Doesn't it make sense you'd only have one type of ammunition for both the guns you use? It makes perfect sense to me. Those scream Americana too. Winchester Model 94. Holy moly. Marlin 336, lever action. That's a lot of people's first exposure to the 2A other than a 22 rifle for deer hunting or elk hunting or whatever they use it for. Ranching in the Southwest, that's a big deal that you run into a lever gun, and that's an American icon, and it's a piece of heritage that is usually passed down from father to son. It may be the first rifle that your dad, maybe your mom got you. That's a big deal. That's a huge cornerstone as you're growing up. At least it was for me to get a hunting rifle. Just so happened my first hunting rifle was a German K98 or a Spanish 7mm. Depends on which one you want to talk about. Both of them Mauser, both of them foreign made. My brothers were the ones that got Marlins and Winchesters. A little envious still to this day. I need to get me a lever action of some kind. But even that doesn't scream pure American icon. The American legacy. The Sam Colt kind of does. But the lever action, kind of. So you go forward in time a little bit. What's the next one you think of? So first one I thought of was a 1911. Because you cannot get more iconic Americana than a 1911. For the longest time, as it being the semi-automatic pistol that was reliable and useful, it was the gun that FBI agents and gangsters carried alike, And it had that big 45 caliber, which America has always seemed to love, is the 45 caliber, 45 diameter bullet. Why? Well, I don't know. I don't understand nowadays. I actually am a bigger fan of 9mm nowadays. But a Glock, to me, screams Austria because that's where they're from. It also screams German. Oddly enough, Glocks are made in Gaston, Georgia. Or Atlanta, Georgia, one of the two places in Georgia, but they're made in the United States now. So is FN Herstal. FN, when I think of FN, I think of Belgium. I think of the FN 48, 49, and the FAL. I don't think about, them making M4s, but they absolutely do for our military. And a lot of components, especially barrels that are really good, are made from FN Herstal. They make a lot of good handguns. A lot of them are made in South Carolina and in Florida, I believe. Tennessee's become a big gun-making hub, and Beretta's there now. Beretta, one of the longest-running gun manufacturers in the world, decided to uproot from Italy because owning a gun in Europe or owning a gun and innovating it with guns in Europe is kind of a bad thing. What does that say about the Germans? I'm a big fan of German guns. 1911 still doesn't scream Americana to me. Scream pure American. Then I thought, you know what? The M1 Garand. The M1 Garand screams America because it was the battle rifle through World War II into Korea. Some of them were even making their way into Vietnam. Okay, it was used by a number of countries around the world. It was handed out to a number of countries around the world because it was kind of an aid package the United States would give away. But I have one problem with it. It was designed by a Canadian. And I'm honestly pretty sure that the gun that I think screams the most Americana now, or most American gun possible, I thought about the Tommy gun. It screams Chicago gangster, 30s, into the 40s, 20s and 30s actually. And then you think, well, no. It's cool, but I remember very clearly that Brits, European, Russians, and Frenchmen used the Thompson because, again, it was part of an aid package. And it didn't have a very long lifespan. What about the grease gun? The grease gun took over for it because it was cheaper to manufacture, lighter, and in reality, having fired both of them in full auto, I would say the grease gun's a better gun for its purpose. But it doesn't scream Americana either. It looks like a play gun, That gets me to the one that I do think screams nothing but pure Americana. Pure American legacy. It's taken supplanted the AK-47 and the SKS as the prepper's gun in the modern day and age. And I'd have to say that has to be the AR-15. We're now seeing Taliban dudes run around with leftover M4s when we shamefully left Afghanistan and left 90,000 people behind. That, again, is up to administration right there. That's, the Biden administration at its best. We left something like $9 billion worth of military equipment there. And we're now seeing our weapon of choice for the battlefield in the hands of the military, of other militaries, and specifically our enemies. It makes a lot of sense, though. You get a Kalashnikov in the 70s from the Afghanistan war, and the barrel's probably shot out. They probably have over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds, pretty close to 1 million. And the AK, while it can take 100,000 rounds and keep ticking, it's not going to be that accurate. But the M4, wow. And that's not even the AR-15, but the AR-15 is America's gun. It is the Lego set for the modern American citizen. It is not outside the realm of reality to collect receivers, lower receivers, in the hopes of using them in trade if the world breaks down, because they're useful and they'll still hold some sort of value. And you don't have to have a fully assembled gun either. It's just trade material. But think about it. A gun that your average American citizen can take, its individual components, and replace, put together as they want, and build a gun to defend themselves against everything. That speaks volumes. Is that not the American way? That you can take this cobbled together parts, these disparaging parts, as long as they're made to spec, put it together and it works. Isn't that kind of how America is supposed to work? That great melting pot theory? It only works if the melting pot actually, the people coming in actually assimilate to our culture. And part of that is being so staunchly opposed to giving up our culture. And the 2A is part of our culture. But nothing to me screams more pure American right now. Pure flag-waving, card-carrying American than an AR-15. Because you can see the preppy Gucci guys carrying them, and you see the lowly, humble working man carrying them. Because it is a service gun for the American citizen. If there was a militia call right now, like there were back in the 1700s, to defend our country, what do you think it'd be defended with? It wouldn't be defended with bolt-action rifles. Bolt-action rifles came from Europe. They weren't even a thing in the United States for a long time. We were more content with the lever actions. But you also have to look at the pure designers of American firearms. So in the vein of the AR-15, Eugene Stoner, pure American. I think he was a naturalized citizen if he wasn't a 100% citizen. His gun met with such success that he actually got to meet his opposite. He got to meet Mikhail Kalashnikov. And they got to shoot each other's rifle and critique them. Different design philosophies. One's a fighter jet. One's a tank or a tractor. They all get the job done. So, what screams American to you in this legacy idea when it comes to the 2A? You know, I'm talking to Lance still, and we're working on when we're going to get together and talk about reloading. So that's still on the burner. But more so, I think having that little chat with Bill this weekend at the gun show really affected me a lot more than I want to admit. Because it reminds me so much of my dad and my uncle and how much of a lost encyclopedia of knowledge it will be when Bill finally does pass. Because the man has a lot of knowledge about just about everything 2A and a lot about planes. And it'd be a damn shame the day he does give up the ghost, then if someone doesn't capture that information with him. You talk about friendly. The man has several machine guns legally. And he's offered to, me and my son, when we go down, my sons and my daughter, if she wants to go down. And as long as we pay for ammunition, we can shoot him. He has an MP40. He has a 1919. I'm not so sure, but I'm pretty sure he still has access to a M2 Mongoose, 50 cal. I've shot all of these, so it's not a big deal to me to want to do that, but it'd be really great to take my kids down, to just let them go wild on a gun range, so to speak, without having the strict, controlled environment of Battlefield Las Vegas. Battlefield Las Vegas is a great place. I highly advise you to go visit them, because there are some guns you will never get a chance to shoot, unless you go to a place like that, or you know somebody that knows somebody. And the longer I've got to talk to people in the 2A community and get a little bit closer to getting into the community and being part of it in a way that could be a way of making a living in the future, I'm noticing more and more how great the community is and how great the people are. But they're aging, including myself. So I hope that one of the legacies I leave is that my kids, and hopefully my grandkids when they have them, because I know they will eventually, despite what they say, instill that same love and passion for the 2A and their innate human rights. Like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great.